Board of Trustees of Venus ISD to order at 7 p.m. and we do have a quorum. And Joe, would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight, Lord, just giving you thanks for the privilege.
We would like to welcome our guests tonight. And we will start out with item number 4, presentation of campus reports and recognition.
It's all right. Okay, so for Venus Primary School, it is short. We are excited for our start of our 22-23 school year. Last week is when I turned this report in, and we had 404 students. As of today, we have 428. We ended last year with 440. 170 first graders, 150 kindergartners, and then 94 pre-K students with 6 EE students. So our first and kindergarten groups are probably the largest they've ever been for Venus. And so we have now added 10 teachers total for first grade, and the class sizes are averaging about 19 to 20 even then. And then we have 10 teachers with our teacher apprenticeship for kindergarten to be able to minimize the capacity in classrooms. We were able to add a brand new kindergartner teacher, a teacher apprentice, first grade teacher, a pre-K bilingual teacher, life skills aide, nurses aide, an ECSC teacher, an ECSC aide, life skills teacher, and a pre-K teacher. So we, other than a counselor, we are fully staffed at the primary school. Okay, when I wrote this report, we were at 665 for enrollment, but we have several families that have not completed registration, so they're not finished with enrollment. So as of today, we were at 640 students that are actually in the building, and we ended the year, I think, right at 635. So when we get all those applications and all the rest of the enrollment in, we will be a lot higher. I was fully staffed at my campus, but with the teacher assistance program, I have shared with the middle school, and so now we are looking for 3 paraprofessionals to replace my people who went to be at the middle school with Kim. So we're very excited for them and the journey they're on, and two of them were already in school and almost finished with their degrees, so they are super excited about that program. just a little overwhelmed right now moving from elementary to middle school, but they're going to be okay, and Kim's going to take great care of them. Other than that, we had an amazing Meet the Teacher, and I didn't have pictures of that because this was turned in before that, but we had I think the count was close to like 600 people in attendance for Meet the Teacher, so it was a packed house. So we will have lots more information on our next board report.
All right. So I did steal from Lori, just to be fair. But the teacher apprentice thing was a huge help for us. We were able to fill all of our positions except for 2. That's not on my board report, sorry. We still have a math position, which we may have filled today. I've got to speak with Ravon and see if we got that finished. And we have a reading position still, but we were able to fill a lot of those positions with amazing teachers. So on our board report, so one of our surveys at the end of the year last year was what could we do, differently to help everybody, and they talked about a campus-wide behavior system. And so we did some training this summer over CHAMPS, and we introduced that to all of our teachers this year. They have started that, and so far that has been beautiful for us. STEM Academy is still growing. We started with 7th graders. This year we have 7th graders and 8th graders, and the 6th graders coming in that signed up for the prerequisites, there were over 40 of them. And so that program continues to grow. Our Venus Middle School Teacher of the Year was Emily Whittington. She got married, so now she's Emily Bodie. But we were able to have her honored at Region 11 at the Teacher of the Year banquet, and so that was really special with her. Are my TSA kids doing now, or are they doing after all of us? Okay, so I have TSA results up there, but I'm going to let them speak for themselves.
Sorry, 41. So we sent 41 kids to nationals. But anyway, these kids are going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that they did. Very proud of what they've done here. So anyway, girls, take it away.
All right. So for a little context, in 2019, when we went to the last live national event, Venus took only 7 middle school students in 2 events, and 1 structural engineering, which I was a part of, was on stage and finished 8th place. This past June, Venus took 35 middle school students in 21 different events and 6 high school students in 7 events.
High school structural engineering and design, which is us, we advanced to finals and finished in 5th in the nation on stage. The 11 middle school teams advanced to finals with Off the Grid, which is her, finishing 8th on stage, and then Career Prep, her, finishing 10th on stage, and Video Game Design getting the 2nd place trophy on stage. We are planning to double these numbers on our way to Kentucky this coming year.
Good job, guys.
But before I pass over to the high school, I just want to say, if Ms. Reeve and Mr. Christensen and Mr. Hargrove hadn't made it, but if you guys could stand up, because they put an unimaginable amount of time into this with these kiddos. The kids do amazing things, but it's because those teachers are willing to stay till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, come after volleyball, whatever that needs to happen so that they can get what they need to be able to compete. So if you haven't had a chance to see, they've got projects out in the hallway for you guys to look at. And so I know they're super proud of all of their stuff. So we also, Ms. Reeve, you didn't tell them to say what overall places we got. You can say that, it's okay.
We got 3rd in the overall points for the state of Texas, and we got 2nd in our division in Texas.
So,
If you had asked me a month ago if we would be able to have school, I would have been, if I was a betting woman, I would have said no, because we didn't have the teachers. But due to some amazing people, we are almost fully staffed. We only have 2 vacancies, one English and one math, and we are still perusing, looking for those candidates. First day of school, we had 677 students, and as of Friday, that went up to 699. I expect that to go up another 40 or 50 kids. That's still a little bit low for us. We met with all students on Friday, 9 through 12. We had 4 different assemblies to go over dress code and ID issues. We are really hitting that hard so that there are no questions about what the expectations are at the high school. And I believe that's all.
If I could, I'm going to go back to middle school for just a second. And one of the things that we've been talking about tonight is the Technology Student Association and all the things that they've done there. There's several things going on at the middle school, but in order for those things to happen, you have to have leadership that is going to facilitate those things. I'm going to ask Kim Buck if she'll come up here for just a minute. Kim Buck, come on. Come on. Come on. Y'all give her a hand. Get her up here. In order for these kind of programs to thrive, survive, whatever you want to call it, you have to have a leader who's going to provide the time, the tools, the training, and the teamwork so that these kids can work, and so that these sponsors and these teachers can do what they have to do. And Kim has facilitated that on her campus, not only in TSA and every one of her departments, and we're so proud of the innovation that is taking place, because what happens is that innovation takes place in this teacher and this teacher and this teacher, and it becomes contagious, and it spreads throughout the whole campus. And kids get excited, and when kids get excited about academic achievement, great stuff happens, and there's no stopping that. So the facilitator of all this, once again, is a great leader in Kim Buck. And every year, the Texas Association of Secondary School Principals accepts nominations. And so I thought, well, this is only appropriate to nominate Kim Buck as Middle School Principal of the Year. And so what they do is, in 20 regions in the state of Texas, only one person receives that for the region. And so for Region 11, that stretches from here all the way up north to the Red River and out west again. That's Region 11. And for Region 11, the Texas Association of Secondary Schools Principals Middle School Principal of the Year is Mrs. Kim Buck. She fixed her scooter hair.
Look, it's really hot in here. This is not, yes, this is not my favorite part, but I do so much appreciate it. I say this to my teachers all the time. I'll say this to you. This has absolutely nothing to do with me. This has to do with them. I just get out of their way and let them do what they do. So really, this belongs to them more than me. So.
Stay up here for just a second and help me recognize someone else. On the middle school campus, we had they're heroes every day, and I think every one of these guys are heroes because of what they do in the lives of kids. But sometimes what happens as a hero is you end up busting out of that shirt, coming out of that phone booth, and stepping into action.
Absolutely.
You never know when that's going to happen, but when duty calls, you just do it. So we have one of those gentlemen here tonight. Where's A.J. King? Coach, come on up. Come on up here, Coach. Come on.
All right, so you can go right here in the middle. He loves this as much as I do. So we had Miss Crossland, and I have her permission to say that. Miss Crossland was working in a room. She's a new teacher, super excited about getting her room set up. We had provided lunch. She got her lunch, went to her room to work. While she was eating, she started choking. And there's nobody around. She's in her room by herself, so she manages to get out into the hallway. And how many times do we hear somebody cough and we just keep walking? But Coach King did not. He turned around and said, "Do you need help?" And he was able to do the Heimlich and help her. Without him being there, I don't know what would have happened because there was nobody else around. So we want to say thank you, and we are super proud of you.
This is just a little bulldog hero.
Miss Wilson, why don't you come up here with him?
Thank you. Yeah, you got a baby at home, you got a family, and so just a small token. I know that. Just a very small token.
We'll move to item number 5, opportunity for public comment. Did we have anybody sign up? No. We'll move to item number 6, presentation by Burleson Works.
We have with us tonight Mr. Drew Pennywell from Burleson Works, and one of the things that we try to do in Venus is we try to reach out to make connections with the workforce for our students, and we've done so in a couple of different directions. Burleson Works has been very responsive and in visiting with us. So, Mr. Drew.
Okay. All right. Testing 1, 2. All right. Well, yes, I am Drew Pennywell. I'm here this evening to represent the Burleson Economic Development Department as a part of the city of Burleson. And first of all, just want to say thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. I know some of you know a little bit about Burleson Works and what it is and what we try to do. But I wanted this very much to just be an informative presentation. Be happy to answer any of your questions, and hopefully this is just a good springboard for more collaboration as we all strive for a lot of the same goals. So if you wouldn't mind going through here. So the main goal of Burleson Works is to fill the local skills gap. And we believe that there is a skills gap in communities like ours and Venus and the surrounding areas, due large part because of the strong economic times we're having in Texas. And all these successes here, these are straight from the state's website as to why it's such a great place to do business in Texas. And that's a good thing, but it means a lot of businesses are striving for a lot of the same workforce and a lot of the same people, and they may not have that special skills set, and that creates that little gap. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So currently there's over 10.7 million job openings nationally. There are about 5 million more jobs available than there are unemployed workers. And 65% of these jobs do not require a 4-year degree. By 2030, 85 million unfilled jobs across all sectors and 2.1 million unfulfilled in manufacturing alone. Today, the Texas unemployment rate is 4.1, and here in Johnson County, we're at about 3.8. So you can kind of see how things stack up and maybe where we're going on how Burleson Works will fill these needs. If you go to the next slide, please. So by 2025, 85 million jobs will be displaced by a shift between humans and machines, more automation in manufacturing, things of that nature. But even more jobs, 97 million estimated, will emerge that are more adapted to the division between humans and machines. The adoption of technology will be in high demand across all jobs and industries. And we're already starting to see that tip just a little bit, even locally here, as manufacturing companies are adopting and incorporating more automation and basically having computers drive their machines instead of humans. So here's some more information about skills gaps and how they determine that this, is an actual growing gap between the skills people have and the skills people need to fulfill these manufacturing jobs. Go ahead, please. All that to say, Johnson County skills gap, that we talk to manufacturers around the area, we see that there's a need for welders, CNC operators, engineers, machinists, software developers, industrial maintenance, automotive, and construction trades. And we see, like in a lot of the previous slides, a lot of these jobs are just a matter of people they don't know they're available, they may not have quite the skills, but they don't need a 4-year degree to go and get these jobs. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is Burleson, but since we're kind of neighbors, some of this will translate. But remote work is here, and it's allowing for people for a larger labor pool. Labor force participation is down 3% from the pandemic in levels of 65 plus in the age groups. The growth rate of number of working age people has declined for the first time in U.S. history. The number of working age people with a bachelor's degree is solidly, uninterruptedly, increasingly by about 2% annually. On the flip side, number of those workers without a bachelor degree are willing to take blue collar and manual service jobs is shrinking. Wage growth is the fastest it's been paced in the last 20 years. And then you can kind of see, just real quick, sorry, that last one, that's job openings that we're seeing in Burleson by numbers, and then countywide as well. All right. So the landscape has been changing, and I think through our Burleson Works program, we've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of kids in CTE programs around the county, and from what we see, everybody is doing a really great job. And I love that it was kind of fateful that you guys have these awesome kids here this evening to get such worthy presentations. And a lot of schools, and you guys are doing great in seeing that the landscape is changing. And, CNT enrollment is up everywhere with, all that goes under that, construction trades, esports, which, would be so important for coding, industrial technology, firefighting, healthcare, and then welding. Of course, I know you all probably already know, we consider Venus the absolute honey hole for welders, and everyone does in the area. So kudos and good job. We talk to employers, and they say, when we get those kids from Venus, we know we're gonna have really good welders. So, but in technical schools are offering more and more learning kind of on the fly, shorter programs. And so you take all that information that I've kind of thrown at you, and a couple years ago, we started what we called the Burleson Manufacturing Industrial Alliance. And it was our economic development group. It was all of our industry partners and manufacturing companies and some higher education providers in the area. And we all sat at the table and said, well, we know there's a skills gap. We know schools can only do so much to get kids out the door with the right kind of training. And then from there, they might want to go 4-year, they might want to do something else. And we, through that, developed what we call Burleson Works, and it's providing career growth through technical education. So its mission is to provide an avenue for companies and citizens in our region to connect with one another and fill that skills gap in our labor market through partnerships with local and regional schools to obtain skills and certifications and gain employment in our community. The goal is to provide an opportunity for students and any citizen at large in the region to gain technical skills that would be beneficial to our community partners. So our organization is set up very similar to the Burleson Opportunity Fund. It's kind of a sister program, and it is under its own 501c3. So when the time is necessary, and we kind of seeded the program this way, it collects private dollars, mostly from our industry partners, and the Economic Development Corporation, the Type 4A, donates money, and that money is what is used to give people that need scholarships. So if you go to the next slide. So there's we just changed the bylaws and how the program works, just recently with the city council. Before, it was a one-year scholarship program, and every year there might be 12 to 14 technical skill jobs in the area available for scholarship. And if you were interested in one of those, whether or not you had the training, you could apply for the job. You'd be interviewed by the company offering that position. If the company selected you, then Burleson Works would pay for the training that the company chose. But now, after 2020, the labor market is even harder. We really wanted the program to be more flexible and be able to be used on the fly. So now, instead of the one-year scholarship cycle, this is beneficial to Venus, although with the big caveat is, since the majority of the money is funded by Burleson sales tax dollars, we have to work with companies within the city of Burleson, but an applicant and a scholarship recipient can be from anywhere. And so that's where we think there's a big potential to help, your kids that are graduating, just help them get plugged in that pipeline and get the training covered. So now it will work as if any employer in the city of Burleson needs to hire new people, but their pool is so small that those folks need additional training, they can contact the Economic Development Corporation, and we will give them up to $35 per scholarship for someone that needs additional training. So let's say that one of your welders graduates and has developed a relationship and really wants to work at KWS, but Bill wants them to have just one more certification. Well, then Burleson Works can step in, pay for that certification, and then they're ready to go. Super flexible, like almost sounds too good to be true because it is super simple, but we believe that this is going to work really well with it being on demand.
Can I just ask a quick question? So would they still interview with the company?
Yes.
Still go through that whole process?
The company still selects the recipient.
Okay, and then they go to work for the company, and then any additional
they train.
training, Burleson Works pays $3,500 for that training. So it's
Correct.
an incentive for
If
that
it's a- if
company
it's
to
a-
hire that employee.
Exactly.
Because that training's gonna be
If
paid
it's a new
for.
employee, we'll pay up to $3,500 and the company gets to pick the provider, the company gets to pick the program. As long as it's, accredited, then we'll reimburse the employer to have paid for the student's training. A new employee, we've added now upskilling. So if they're an existing employee, but they want to move divisions, need a new certification, something like that, we will also pay up to $1,500 for an existing employee to receive training. The Texas Workforce does a program like this, but it's really cumbersome and hard to use, is how we've always received input from our industry partners. And so we just wanted to kind of emulate that, but this way they can do it per employee. They don't have to have a big group together, and we're not the state. We're not going to get into their books and their HR and all that.
So I have another question. You may cover this in a minute in another slide, but what all industries is this? So I know it's manufacturing. Do you ever have like the fire departments? Do they do this
Yes.
also? And do you have that information?
Yes, we've had a wide variety of businesses we've worked with so far and had scholarship recipients go to. KWS, I mentioned. So it's mostly manufacturing and just kind of the nature of how the program got started. However, there is there's no parameters around who can utilize the program or the type of training that can be received. So let's say a student really wanted to go into finance after school, but they weren't sure, they wanted to jump right into 4-year and work their way down a finance degree. Well, we could try to partner them up with a local wealth management company, and they could just start with a QuickBooks training or something like that. So it's incredibly flexible. We've had folks use industrial information technology and got students, you know, working with an IT firm in town right out of school. So it's a wide variety, but historically it's been mostly manufacturing.
So you don't do anything with maybe like the cities or get them put in with like the city workers or anything like that?
We have had the City of Burleson Fire Department has had some go through, but it just has to do with the demand and when they need, whether, I think it was a student went through and got an EMT certification, so they were already a firefighter. But those opportunities are endless. It's about, as we've changed this program, is part of what we're doing here is, you know, spreading the word, helping, you know, get that out there so that we know, and you know, hey, these students need some extra training, you can call us and we'll help, you know, work with the companies and call around and say, you know, what have you got? We know this is a good student. We'll get them the training and get them in your door. Yeah. So we've been working with a lot of big groups. Venus is on there, so I want to make sure you guys are represented because we have appreciated you guys working with us through the program so far. We feel like with these changes we're making, we'll hopefully be able to help each other more easily and not be as restricted to that annual calendar. And that's, I guess I shouldn't have mentioned Bill. I forgot he was already in here. He got too many kudos on this one. But that is all, but I'll be more than happy to answer as many questions as you want. I don't want to take up too much of your time though.
So I know that y'all do a job fair every year.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you get the, how do you get those companies that come and participate at the job fair?
So far, it's the companies that are offering scholarships for that year. It's going to change a little bit. We'll still have an annual job, Burleson Works Expo. We'll have it open to all of our industry partners. It's free to them. They come for the afternoon. We hold it at the Brick. So obviously it's free for all the job seekers. And then I think we've done, maybe it's like $20 a booth for anybody that's not a Burleson Works partner. And so we've had anywhere from probably 40 to 60 businesses at those.
And it's during the day, right?
Yes. Yeah, we try to stagger it a little bit, so it's usually been from about 2 to 6. So we could still, if you got off of work, you could still get time to get there, but the majority of the program takes place during the day, on a weekday.
I think this would be a good opportunity for our CTE students to be like a field trip, just like for band, how it's a great if you don't go to the band thing on a bus. Because I've participated and I haven't seen a big group of Venus students when I've been there. Well, I would think a bus full.
How many did we take?
4. I mean, I think we load up a bus. This is a free way, I think, for our students, even if they're not interested in any of those businesses, to at least learn what a job fair is like, how to talk, how to sell themselves, things like that, and it's free for us to do.
We can even get them where they can put a resume together and make it a class credit, or make it a class grade.
High school just recently hired a business teacher, and it's her first year. This would probably be a great program. It's, I understand, freshman, so we might want to partner with her. If we're talking about a field trip, that might be a great item for her. So we have a whole business class that just started this year. Right? Yes?
Yes.
And I do know that a lot of times,
You're smaller over there.
I do know that a lot of times, or in the past, I know with COVID it probably changed, but I do know in the past firsthand that y'all do meet with the students who have applied and kind of go over pointers, because I've been a part of that, and explain to them how to interview, how to do things like that, things to say, how to sell themselves. So I think it's a great program, and it's free. I don't know why. I think we should take as much advantage of this as we can.
In conversation with Alex, is bringing him on site to have conversation with our kids.
Which I know he's done that, where he's gone to different classes. I just think
Him
I
going-
think the benefit of a job fair is huge when you're 17 years old and don't know really how to sell yourself.
What time of the year is the job fair?
Historically, we've had that in February, as a part. But again, our city council only just a couple weeks ago approved these changes, so the calendar is going to look a little bit different. But rest assured, make you guys aware and lots of the other schools, and provide a formal invitation to make sure you have all the information you might need and be available to ask questions.
Well, that's exciting. We will certainly make a point to make a significant showing.
All right. Thank you all very much again.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to item number 7, presentation of long-range planning committee report.
Give it a second. All right. Well, we're with Huckabee, and for those of you that aren't familiar, we did over the course of the past couple of months have the opportunity to meet with a lot of your community and a lot of your staff, Mr. Hopper, and talk about the Venus ISD long-range plan. And really, that is exactly what it sounds like. It's talking about facilities in the long range, not just looking at what we're talking about here in the near future, this coming up bond that is another conversation that's coming up, but really the long range plan. What do we see 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out? How are we going to get you all to continue with the growth that you're getting, to be able to manage that and be able to manage the facilities to accommodate that. So this was predominantly run by our planner, Jenna, and Mr. Hopper. I'm going to let Jenna speak to this, and then at the end, let us know if you guys have any questions. Jenna?
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. My name is Jenna Norton. I'm with Huckabee Architects, and we had the privilege of working with your long-range planning committee and lots of your staff members to really develop what is your long-range plan for your facilities moving forward in the next 5 to 10 years, and even maybe beyond. We can go to the next one. Yeah, keep going. So this is just a table of contents. We're showing you the document that we have put together that you will have a hard copy of, right, Cameron, this week to you. So keep going, yeah. So I just want to keep going. Just share with you the purpose, like Cameron said, of the long-range plan. Essentially, we have needs, and so in order for us to determine what to do when, we have to put together a list of exactly what we need, right? And then we can look at what dollars we have and then go, okay, for now we can afford to do this, and then we can phase this and do it later. And essentially, this was our approach. We had 5 meetings with your committee, like Cameron said, led by Mr. Hopper, and just we work collectively with the committee. So if you could go to the next page, please. So I just want to recognize the individuals that were a part of the committee. They were very dedicated and just really very engaged. So it was really amazing to see. We had about 50 individuals on the committee. As the summer months came along, it kind of dwindled down just a little bit, but we had a consistent showing, and we had board member participation, which was great to have Les and Kirby and Chad there. So it was really an exciting time. If you could keep going, please.
If you don't mind.
Yes,
Jenna,
sir.
also
Yeah, jump in. Please
wanted
jump
to
in.
point out, too, that we had a good number of students that were very active.
We had a good number, that's
in
right.
that, as well as some community members besides our own staff.
Yes, sir, that's a great point. Yes, we had lots of student participation. Yes, thank you, Mr. Hopper. That's a great point. So essentially, we started with sharing the vision and the mission of Venus ISD. So along with that, if you can keep going, Mr. Hopper talked about, I'm sorry, can you go back? Mr. Hopper talked about the presence of the future, so kind of play on words, if you will, but just really how we're thinking about the future even right now with what Venus ISD has. You can go to the next one. Mr. Hopper had been having community meetings already prior to our committee meetings. So essentially really sharing about the growth that you have coming to your community. And so really making the community aware of what's coming so that we can best prepare and be proactive as opposed to reactive. You can go to the next one. So essentially when we first started, we asked the question of the committee, what do you want for our kids at Venus ISD? This was a poll that we did, and we did them throughout the meetings that we had, just to gauge the committee's feedback and their responses. And so you can kind of see just some of their feedback initially. We did this poll twice. We did initially to start with, and then we talked about what education looks like moving forward, right? How do we prepare for our kids' future? And then we did the poll again. So I do want to touch that for every one, except for one, for every one of our meetings, we met at a different campus. And at the beginning, we toured each campus. And so it gave an opportunity to the principals. And I remember you because you were talking about the robotics in a classroom. And she was trying to share with the committee, even though it's challenging, this is what they do with the space that they have, even though it doesn't fit what they're doing. So it was a very engaged and eye-opening experience, I believe, for the committee members. And so we also talked about how you prepare for a changing world, what education looked like for the past, actually that first image is from the 1800s. So like what education looked like then, and then how we have kind of advanced since the 21st century. So you can go to the next one. Please jump in, Mr. Hopper and Cameron, if I miss something. Yeah. We talked about how we are preparing for a changing world, the skills, 21st century skills that they're predicting that are going to be very difficult to come by. And one of them actually is critical thinking and collaboration and problem solving and working together. So in line with that, we also looked at the skills and the jobs that are coming up in the marketplace. And so then we asked for the committee to respond to the information we've had provided them. And so we've documented that feedback. You can keep going. And then Mr. Hopper shared about the different programs that you have going on right now at Venus ISD and the different types of learning that are going on and the challenges that exist spatially. What was really great about that is that not only did the committee get to see this as we presented it, but then as we toured the different campuses, they got to see it in real time what that really translated to in your spaces. So it was very, very, very informative for them. You can go to the next one. Okay, so then we moved on to, so since we have all this growth coming, Mr. Hopper talked about, so what do? Do we seize the opportunity for where Venus is located in proximity to Fort Worth and to Dallas, the Metroplex as a whole? What is the opportunity for Venus ISD and the Venus community to take advantage, right? Again, we went back to the committee and asked them, what do we want for our kids? And as you can see, the responses changed just a little bit. Some of the key words are highlighted there, but obviously pride and choices and having those opportunities for the students were some key comments that were made. Anything you want to add, Mr. Hopper?
Well, I was just going to say, for those that, the box up there in the upper right, the way that is constructed is that everybody gives their feedback electronically, and their feedback goes in there, and the more times a word is used, the bigger the word.
Correct, yes.
So when we asked the question, and what was their question we asked here?
We asked, what do you want for our kids at Venus ISD?
Right.
Yes.
And so pride came out more than anything else in that. So I think it's pretty interesting to see that. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that's kind of similar in size, but opportunity and choices. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yes, sir. And on the next slide, if you go to the next slide, I believe we do a comparison of the two. So you can kind of see very similar responses, but whereas we talked about, the location of Venus and then the opportunities that could be available to them, just that sense of pride in your community and your kids, that kind of shone through. So, yes, absolutely. Okay, yes, we can move on. And then we touched on a little bit about school finance, and Ms. Grew made a comment about how she wished that our buckets were that full of M&O and the INS money. But essentially differentiating between what is M&O, maintenance and operations, INS, interest and sinking, so that the committee could understand where money comes from for what purposes. So we kind of really broke it down for the committee members. And then we also, on the left side of the page, you'll see Mr. Hopper provided for us specifically where the pots of money were coming from at Venus ISD, which was very informative again for the committee, so that they can make an informed decision as they put all of this information together. Go to the next one. So the second portion of this meeting that we had, this was our third meeting. It coincided with the tragedy that happened at Uvalde ISD. So obviously, emotions are heightened, and it's a very, very scary and jarring and shocking experience. So on the heels of that, we had this meeting, and we talked about safety and security and how we can use the learning environment, right, CPTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design. So how can the building and the way it's designed protect our kids, right? Even whether they're outside, whether they're inside, what goes on inside the building as far as, and as well as the outside, how it can protect our kids. So we reviewed that, but again, at the beginning of it, like we did at the last exercise, we asked the question about what comes to mind when they think about our kids feeling safe and secure. And you can see the responses. Obviously, scared is high up there. It was very prevalent, and understandably so. It was kind of a sobering time during this meeting because of just what we had experienced as a nation. So if you could go to the next slide.
If I may, on
Yes,
that,
sir.
And back on that one, please, Liz. When it says crime prevention through environmental design, what that means is that the design of the structures themselves can assist in preventing these crimes. I think it's very important to note, and she's not going to say this, but I'll tell you that down in Uvalde, they're tearing down the old the former elementary school, and they're rebuilding one. And the architect chosen to rebuild that school, to design that school, is Huckabee Architects down in Uvalde. So I'm very proud of that aspect, and that that we've got the best designing ours. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So essentially, we talked about the building, right, as a tool for safety and security, but we also talked about what goes on inside the walls of the school that can provide for the safety and security of our kids. Inclusion, empathy, mentoring, having positive feedback towards the students, and just really being engaged, having spaces that are inviting, that connect with nature in a safe way, so that it really provides for the learners' physical and mental well-being. So we talked about that as well. And again, we went back to the committee and asked them to give us their responses. And this is, obviously, it's a little bit different than the initial response that they gave us, but similar, just because it was so near to what had just happened. I do want to touch on, can you go to the next slide? Can't remember. Okay, go back. Sorry, I just couldn't remember what was there. Yeah, I do want to touch on the fact that despite the fact that this had just happened, what was really amazing about this committee is they talked about they don't want to have prisons for schools. So how can we really best provide for our kids in a safe way where they feel free to explore, but they're protected and they're safe? And so, like Mr. Hopper said, that's really our onus to work with you collaboratively to provide the best environments that ensure the safety and security of your kids.
Jenna?
Yes, sir.
One thing, and again, to Mr. Hopper's point earlier, the fact that we did have a fair amount of students in the room, the message was a little bit more diverse than just getting a parent's point of view or an adult's point of view. We made a point to reach out to the kids and say, okay, why don't you talk about what's bothering you? Let's hear from your point of view, and that helps develop what we're trying to accomplish here. Also, the idea of the CPTED, is the facility? Sure, but it's actually the entire environment. It's the campus, it's the surrounding, your paths, your egress, your accessibility. It's all of it inclusive. So it's not just saying, well, these walls are what's going to create a safe environment. It's an entire campus design. It's looking at it holistically.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. What is the building and the perimeter? Right, so, yeah, thank you. Mr. Hopper, did you want to add anything? Okay, we can go to the next. Okay, so then we reviewed with the committee the status or the state of the current facilities. We reviewed each of the campuses that the district has, the 5 campuses, including the primary, the elementary, the middle school, the high school, and the 3rd Street facility. You can go through those. And essentially these images just kind of highlight some of the findings, and it's listed on there all of the different points at each campus of what needs to be addressed. So with that, we also looked at the growth. We touched on growth and demographics over a range of time. So you can see the graph right there. If you go to the next slide, this slide shows the map of Venus and the enrollment numbers projected in 2018, and then what is expected when Venus is at full capacity. So you can kind of see the differences between the two and what kind of growth is projected to come. Mr. Hopper, did you want to add anything on that?
We do have an update coming on those numbers. Excuse me. That update should be here about mid-October.
Right on. That'll be good. Okay. So essentially after that, we went to the committee and we asked them, with all the information that we've provided to them, to really start thinking about and putting together some thoughts and some thoughts down. They broke into 5 groups. The 5 groups are listed right there, and you might recognize them because it's a part of the vision and mission statement for Venus ISD. And so the different characteristics that exemplify Venus ISD. And so in each of their groups, they came up with some ideas, and we gave them the charge of thinking big and thinking outside the box. So some of them really did think outside the box, like we had a natatorium, we had a rodeo arena, sorry. Did we have anything else that you can think of? Yeah. So those are fun, but we asked them to think big. So, and that's really what we wanted. We wanted to cast the wide net, which was great. And so if you can see on the bottom right image, we had each of the committee members select an individual that was going to speak for them, and you might recognize the speaker right there. But each one of them spoke to what their group discussed and what they selected and their why. So that's all documented there as well. We can go to the next slide. I've been given 10 minutes, so I'm trying to rush through. So along with the recommendations, they also had some questions and some comments. And one of the things that was stated was, with all of the recommendations they were making, phasing projects would be a good idea. So, which was really great. This was a discussion also we had as we moved forward. We can go to the next slide.
Can we just pause on that, and I'll
Yeah,
just take...
sure, of course.
One of the things you see on there in that blue, just under that picture, says, what should we do? And then what can we do? And that's how we very intentionally ask those questions in that order. Because if you ask what can we do at first, you don't ever get to what should we do. You stop there. So what should we do tells us, this is what we need to do for our kids for Venus ISD. Then we ask what can we do? Well, wait a minute, we don't have the ability to do that. So the very next question you ask after that is, why can't we? And we start making it work. If we answer with what should we do, and we've got our answers here, then it's up to us to try to find a way to do it. Now, it may have to be done in phases. We have to be creative with it. But that's why we ask those questions in that order.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's a great point. Okay, so in response to their recommendations, we put together a presentation outline of what the construction market looks like right now. We talked about escalation, we talked about some costing numbers, terminology, what is addition, what is renovation? What types of renovation are we talking about? Are we talking about paint and maybe moving some walls? Or are we talking about tearing it down to the studs and building again? So we talked about all of those different areas. We also talked about grade configuration of if-then. So if we were, some of the recommendations were, we could do a new high school. So if we do that, what does that mean with all of the other grades? How does it alleviate some of the concerns with capacity? So Mr. Hopper spoke to that. Mr. Hopper, did you want to add anything on that? Okay. So we armed our committee with all of this information. Cameron, did you want to say anything about construction? No?
No. No, again, I think there was a pretty high-level conversation. Again, the goals being to inform and really get the better, so that the committee had an understanding of the elements. Certainly we're not going to get into the weeds of it. Some of that is going to happen in the future planning sessions, the bond planning. But really to make sure that they understood what we were talking about and what they were wanting for the district and what the decisions were.
Yeah. Thank you, Cameron. So, no, stay right there, please. Okay, so armed with that information again, we asked the committee to get together again. And I guess this was during the summer months, so we had a little bit smaller group, but we still had a really good turnout. I think we had like 30 people, 25, 30 people this year. So, so we asked them to take their list that they initially provided us, that was the lofty, right, big ideas, and asked them to kind of narrow it down as to what they feel like are key pieces of improvements that need to happen in the district. And so they broke down into their 4 groups and gave us their unanimous list, which is right there. And key for each and every group was safety and security of our campuses. And the number 2 point was to build a new high school. So they want to see a comprehensive, this is their list, comprehensive high school. They also talked about improving the campuses that you currently have. So, and doing something with the 3rd Street facility. There was lots of ideas as to what to do with the 3rd Street facility. So, no one wants to lose 3rd Street facility. We want to improve it, so, which was really great. So if you go to the last page, yeah, collective wisdom. So essentially on this page, we have put together their kind of parting words, right? Their aha moments of what they realized they didn't know or they didn't realize was the case. And one of the big things was that they didn't realize how our the campuses are at Venus ISD, what goes on in the learning environment and how those spaces support what's going on and kind of how they coincide. How much goes on and how the spaces don't support that. I was just trying to say it a little bit nicely, but essentially they're saying, we need the spaces to do what we want to get done. Would that be fair? Okay. And then on the right side, you'll see the key collective recommendations that the committee put together and some parting words, if you will, some closing remarks from the committee that they provided us. One of the big things that they stressed is that we have open communication and transparency among all of the stakeholders and to make sure that we engage the end users since it's going to be them that live in those spaces. Okay, and I think that's it. How'd I do, Mr. Hopper? Did I okay? Oh, sorry. I tried.
Did anybody have any questions?
Yes, any questions? Did I? All right, thank you, sir. We good? Okay, no questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Again, it was a great pleasure for us to do this journey with you guys. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go to item 22A, Superintendent's Report.
And And I've asked, and Tasha's graciously agreed. We've got some folks from our community here that are going to talk about Booster Club, and I was going to have them do this during my report, but I didn't want them to have to sit here all night. So anyway, Cody Howard is president of our Booster Club, and he's got his entourage with him. And Cody?
Yeah, so I speak pretty loud. I don't know if I need this or not. All right. So I'm Cody Howard. Last year, a little bit before this time, I got elected president of the Booster Club. And when we started, there was 3 or 4 people doing it, right? And we're upwards 7 or 8 now. So I thought that was going to grow a lot faster. It didn't, but we're working. We're excited about it. We're doing all kinds of good stuff, and that's why I'm here. What I'm here to talk about, right? So kind of the things we're doing with the Booster Club and how we're raising money. We are fully transparent, right? We have to be. So I'll share some dollar figures with you as well, right? So to start it off, I do want to recognize the people that have contributed over the last year, because it's crazy. Just like you guys, we all have full-time jobs, and then we're not just trying to make one sporting event. We're trying to make them all, right? So I think they deserve some credit. So we've got Summer Howard, who's here. It's my wife. Misty Flowers, she's here. Armanda Athos, Rick Lucas, which is here. Jessica Acevedo, Brandy Kitchens, Nick Kitchens. We actually had a new member tonight, Sharon. And I forgot her name.
No. She's not here.
No, Danae. I'm sorry, Danae. So sorry. Yes, you are. So you better be. You're there helping us all the time. Yes, I got 8. There we go. We got 8. So we're growing it. We're doing good things. When the first time I looked at the financials, I think we had $1,200 in the bank. Okay. At the end of this last year, we had over $12,000. So I think we had a successful first year. Our goal this year is $20,000. Hopefully I can come back later and tell you we made 25, right? So what we're doing with this money, though, is we're putting it back into the kids and the community. We're working closely with Coach Spray. We've talked about some of the tech, funding some of the tech stuff that they're doing. We've talked about doing stuff for volleyball, soccer, every sport's included, right? So all the way from 7th grade to 12th grade. So it's not, we're not exclusive at all, right? We're keeping everybody involved. So some of the things we've done, we've worked in cooperation with FFA and AG. We've worked every concession stand for every home sporting event, and we've had people there, and we've successfully made money at each event. We held an athletic banquet last year. I think it was the first time in 3 years we'd had an athletic banquet, and we actually came out on top instead of upside down financially. So I give that credit to the team in setting up new ideas, like with silent auctions, things like that, to help generate a little bit more cash flow so we can push it back into these kids. We participated in the Fish Bowl, the Back to School Bash. Last year we had some banners built. We didn't get to implement this, but it's going to be implemented this year. We had some banners built that says Dog Pound, right? And we're going to create those student sections that have it marked off so the kids know where they're supposed to go. We've actually got another group that's working with us as well, which I think Amber's a part of. And that's part of the whole Dog Pound thing kind of coming together, right? We're stronger as one. So what else do we have here? We have some signs that say "We are change." Working with the athletic department, the big thing was they wanted change here. They want these kids to have, it's funny because pride was up there, right? They want to be proud. They're hungry for it, right? So it's like, what do we do? Well, we start giving them something to be proud of, right? Parents coming out, getting the community involved. These kids are fighting for us when they're on the football field, basketball court, soccer field. They're fighting for us, right? So with that, I'll get on my soapbox for a second here. I highly encourage everyone in this room to be at all the events if you can. I mean, these kids will remember this forever, right? Whether they're going to remember your name, that's a different story, but they'll know you're there, right? Because they can see the people coming. We worked with the city early on, so they bought banners to put Venus Bulldog banners up around the square on the light pole signs. So we've got that done. We bought banners, and we just actually got them in last week, and I'd like to show these off. We're going to line the streets with these, so when people come to the football games, they know they're entering the dog house, right? They know where the Bulldogs are. So I'll show these off real quick. So we have these, and then we went ahead and we thought it would be great as the Booster Club to offer as membership to the Booster Club. It's $25 for a shirt and a sticker. We've got the shirts here. And it's following the theme that we work together with the athletic department on, right? It's time. And on the back, change is coming, we are change. So we're excited about that, try to give a little motivation back to the kids. And by the way, everybody in here is welcome to be a Booster Club member. That doesn't mean you have to show up at every game and work, though we would appreciate it. But you don't have to. It's $25 shirt and a sticker to put on your car. It's my sales pitch. Our current balance is $4,898.89. Okay, so we had $12,000. What we've done since then is we have stocked all the concession stands, so they're ready to go for the fall season. We have we bought banners, shirts, things of that nature to help drive some more revenue with the sales. And the next big event that I want everybody to come to is Meet the Bulldogs, which is on the 20th between 6:30 and 7:30 p.m. We're gonna announce all the varsity teams. We're gonna have the other teams out on the field. We're gonna have band involved, cheerleaders involved. We've got another group. VYSA is going to be involved. We've got a group. The Dog Pound is going to help decorate, and then we're going to give a preview of what the roads will look like as those other teams are coming into our house, right? So I'm super pumped about it. There's a lot more to come. I truly, from like the bottom of my heart, I ask you guys, help support us, because I'm telling you, anytime any of you want to check out the books, bring it. I'll show it to you. There's nothing like I call it country naive, right? I work at a big company, and they always say, "Man, you're so naive." Well, I'm just country naive. I'm just honest about everything. So y'all bring it in, take a look at it. You'll see that what you do is worth it because it's going directly back in the community. We're working with the city and the athletic department to make things happen. Thank you.
Well, Cody, I greatly appreciate your enthusiasm. You got me fired up. I'm ready to go play ball or something. Whatever you're selling, I'm ready to buy it. So I did want to ask you, though, so we don't have to call you in the middle of the night and to fill out a form or something. Is there an online presence for the Booster Club that we could join the Booster Club?
So there is an online presence, and we are going to create a form that we're going to put out on Facebook, and you'll be able to just download it, right, fill it out, and give it to us. At that point, so currently, until we get that done, we're going to set up booths, and I'm personally going to be setting that just about every home game on a booth where you can come sign up. We've got Venmo, so you can scan my name tag here, right, to pay the $25, and we'll have the shirts and the stickers readily available.
And I think there's been a misunderstanding that VISD staff could not be in the Booster Club, and that is not correct.
Okay.
So, and I believe we're going to have a little competition between campuses on percentages on that. So, anyway.
I would love that.
Am I right?
Listen.
Am I right? I mean, I'm just saying.
Are we placing bets now?
Well, I think Ortiz is kind of, anyway. All right, well, Cody, again, thank you so much for your enthusiasm. And anybody else?
Cody, can you tell everybody when your meetings are? Like, I know we meet like the third Monday, but can you just tell everybody when you meet, and then do you post that on your, like, where can
Yes.
we drive parents to go and say this
Yes.
is when they meet, this is where they're meeting at, just that information that parents can be involved, because they're saying come get involved. Where and how do they get involved?
Absolutely. So we meet the first Monday of every month between 6:30 and 7:30 at the high school cafeteria. And we do, yes. So the way to find us, that's the second part of your question. I was noodling, trying to find that second part. It was Venus Booster Club on Facebook is where is that the exact tag?
Well, it's like Venus Athletic Booster Club.
Venus Athletic Booster Club. All right, thank you,
You do have a
Rick.
QR code for that too, I made you.
Yes, we do. Thank you. So look us up, and it will be posted when the meetings are. We welcome everybody. Those are the public meetings, right? So we may have like tonight, we knew we had some events coming up. We threw a meeting last minute on the schedule, got the board members together, had to approve the funds for watermelons for the Meet the Bulldog, stuff like that. So we'll have stuff like that as well. And if you want to be involved in that, you can be involved in that piece of it too, right? You just let us know. But just the membership, like I said, it's $25. You do get something for it. And we're talking about all kinds of cool stuff. We've talked about doing parking spots and things like that to help, just bring the community together, right? And get people involved. And this is important. This is the last thing I'll say. Check this out. So on Saturday mornings, Coach Spray is going to have a film session with all the football players' parents. So you're welcome to come to that. We're going to supply breakfast, the Booster Club will, and you'll get to go over the film with the head coach. He'll show you what he's looking at, show you what he's seeing, and he's going to tell you how he's going to improve it. So I'll leave that. I guess I'll open up for more questions, but.
Anybody have any questions? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll move to item number 8, consider approval of charge to the bond committee.
So, item number 8, you've heard the long range planning committee report. So what this would be is anticipation of a bond committee. That bond committee, we're in the process of assembling right now, and we expect that will be done within about 3 or 4 weeks as far as the assembling of that committee. But what this charge is, it says to help the district plan for the future, Venus Bond Committee 2023 is charged to represent the entire community in the facility planning process, assist the district in assessing and prioritizing the district's current and long-term facility needs, including but not limited to district growth and capacity, building age, safety and condition, student and program equity, evolving educational delivery programs, also to consider the educational needs of all students and align the recommendations with the district mission, vision, and goals. Consider the district's financial position and funding methods to develop a recommendation that is fiscally sound. And finally, to report their findings to the Venus ISD Board of Trustees that will include recommendations on how to proceed with a long-range facilities plan. So that's the charge then of the Venus ISD Bond Committee. That's their job.
Did anybody have any questions on that?
So do we have are we just going to take it out to somebody and ask if they want to be on the bond committee? Are we
So,
still looking at,
good
like,
question. So what we're doing is, and I've mentioned it even to our board, if you've got somebody that you want to recommend for the bond committee, what we're trying to do is we're actually going to be very open and transparent about we want as many people on there as possible. There are the bond committee dates, and I've sent those out in the board update. So we'll be communicating those, and so people understand what those dates are. We do want to make sure that our bond committee is representative of our community so that we have all of our neighborhoods and all of our demographics recommended as well, or represented as well. So if you have specific folks that you want to recommend, that would be great. We want people who are going to come in here and work toward what this is.
Now, I've had someone ask, so are we just asking for people that live inside the city of Venus, or can the people live in the Homestead area?
Anybody who lives in Venus ISD. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Yeah, is there gonna be a number of people? You ain't gonna have 1,500, are you?
No, sir. I'd love to have 100. Actually, honestly, a good functional group is about, if you have like 30 to 50, realistically, if I'd love to have about 60 people in that room. But realistically, if you get, like I said, about 30, 40 people in there that hang with it, because there are going to be 4 or 5 meetings that they have to stay with. Yes, sir.
Do we have any other questions? No. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion made by Jay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kirby. All in favor? Motion passes. Move to number 9, presentation of student growth performance updates.
Whichever, yeah, we can start with that one. That's fine. So this is the really will be the last growth report that kind of wraps up 21-22. And next month we'll have data on 22-23. And so we wanted to touch base on our student outcome goals. Last month we went over student outcome goals 1 and 2, which focused on 3rd grade reading and math. And we saw progress in both of those areas, but also noted the areas in which we need to pay attention. So this is student outcome goal 3, which focused on CCMR indicators at the high school level. And so we had set this goal a couple of years ago that we wanted to increase the number of graduates graduating with CCMR indicators from 48% to 60% by June 2024. And we've already reached that 60%, which we met last year. And then again, we stayed at 60%, which we'll look at a couple of reasons why that is. But that 60% goal has been accomplished. So from this point, we just want to keep increasing that number and that percentage. So the next slide, we'll just go into the progress measures for each. Oh, I'm sorry. So that's the first progress measure. Yeah, we don't want to skip that one. So underneath CCMR indicators, one of the areas we wanted to focus on was the number of students meeting SAT and ACT criteria. But what we saw happen because of COVID was that the SAT requirement for college entrances was waived during one of those years. And so the number of students who took those tests declined drastically. And that was not just our district. That affected really the entire nation. And so we saw our number of the percentage of students meeting the criteria drop because we had so many fewer students take it. So that's red because that we didn't meet our goal, which was 32%. We still have time to bring that back up. Our goal was 32% by June 2024. And so this year we're putting some things into place at the high school to get more students involved in SAT and ACT prep and awareness. And so we want to have more kids testing this year. One of the things that we're looking at doing is having probably an SAT day, which means we provide the test for all juniors. And so that is on the radar for this year.
Can I comment on the first? Sure. If we've met our goal at 60 and say, of course, we're going to want to increase it, should maybe we not look at that and set another goal?
No, I think that's exactly the case as we start into this goal setting phase. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. So as we look at these progress measures, we want to be thinking, okay, if this is where we are, where do we want to shoot for? Like, what is our next goal for each of these? Okay, so if you want to scroll down, please, to the next page. So we had 2 more progress measures. So the next one was looking at the number of students earning a score of 3 or higher on the College Board Advanced Placement exams. And so we were able to implement a total of 4 AP courses when this data that led to this data. And so we had a greater number of students taking those exams. And so we saw the increase there to 15 students scoring a 3 or higher, which is fantastic. So we definitely met that goal. And this year we just want to keep our eye on that to make sure we have students enrolled in AP, and that moving into next year that we continue offering AP courses and broadening that variety for students. And then the last progress measure was to increase the number of industry-based certifications to 35. And so we have already exceeded that. So we are at 38, which is great. And we want to just keep adding more. And so we've talked about different things that are in the works this year, PTEC being one of them, that will lead to more of those IBCs. So that is student outcome goal number 3. Okay, then we're gonna flip over. So like I said, this is the wrapping up of 21-22. And so the state just released our accountability rating and published it today. And so we can share some of that information here tonight. And so we're just gonna take a quick look at each campus, what the rating is, and then what are some grows and glows for each campus. And this is gonna directly impact our goals for our district and campus improvement plans for the upcoming year. So Venus Elementary was rated a B, which is fantastic, which is an increase from or whenever the last time they rated us. I don't think it was a couple of years ago. So we definitely saw academic growth across all grade levels and all subject areas. And we've been seeing that growth in our monthly reports through our MAP testing, through our Lexia and Imagine Math. So we've been looking at growth, consistent growth all year long. And so that was definitely played out in the STAR test, which is fantastic. However, there's always a grow to go along with it. So one area of improvement is to improve the overall STAR performance to meets grade level. And we've been saying that all year long. Our goal is not just approaches, our goal is meets, which means kids are on grade level. And so when we looked at our MAP growth goals, when we looked at the projected proficiencies, all of those things, we're always looking at how many students are meeting expectations. And so this just confirms what we have known that we are working on all along. And so the state is just also giving us that recommendation that we need to pay attention to that. Okay, so then the next few slides, we're just gonna look at each grade level, and so we've looked at our MAP growth all year long, but the state has now given us data to look at the growth of our students based on their data point, which is the STAR test. And so we can see each grade level based on the state's formula for progress, whether they met their expected growth, whether they were accelerated, which means they made more growth than they should, not that they should have, but they were expected to, and if they were limited, which means they didn't quite meet that indicator. So 4th grade reading, 74% of our 4th grade students were accelerated or expected growth in reading, which is fantastic. In 4th grade math, we had 62% of our 4th graders accelerated or expected growth in math. So overall, 92% of our 4th graders achieved expected or accelerated progress, and we can clearly see that in the rating, and we've been looking at that growth all year. And the reason why we're starting with 4th grade is because 3rd grade, of course, doesn't have a progress measure because they didn't have scores last year. So this is students' growth from last year to this year. So 5th grade reading, we can see incredible growth there. We had 83% of the students either meet their expected growth or accelerate or exceed. And then in math, again, 79% of the students met their expected growth or accelerated. So just fantastic results for the elementary school. And then a 5th grade overall, 96% of our 5th graders met or exceeded their expected growth on the STAR test.
So overall, our elementary school went from years ago when they tested us or rated us last from a D now to a B. So
Yes, sir. That is
very
correct.
good, very good elementary school.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, excellent job.
Okay, so middle school was not given a rating this year, but we were given some data to point out some glows and grows. So again, we did see academic growth across all grade levels in reading, in which we saw that growth all year long. We saw growth in math, but what the state is saying is that there wasn't enough on the STAR test. So we saw the growth in the MAP growth test. So what we want to pay attention a little more closely to this year is that growth pulling kids, reaching them to grade level. So we definitely celebrate growth across the board no matter where we see it, but we want to make sure that they're growing enough. And so another thing that we want to, or another area we want to pay attention to, is that we're monitoring individual student growth across all of our student groups. And so the state breaks our student populations down into all sorts of fun groups. And so we just want to pay attention to that they're all making progress and they're all making growth based on what they need, and that we're not inadvertently favoring one group or ignoring another group. So 6th grade reading, we did see 37% of our 6th grade students meet or accelerate their progress in reading. And then in math, 39% met or accelerated their progress in math. So overall, 60% of the 6th graders did achieve expected or accelerate in one area. 7th grade reading, we saw 79% of the 7th grade students met or exceed their growth in reading, which is fantastic. Math, we know, had been a struggle for our 7th grade students this year. 38% of them did meet or exceed that progress measure. So overall, 86% of them did meet or exceed in one area or the other. And then 8th grade reading, 78% met or exceeded, and 62% met or exceeded in math. And so of course we know that means for those 8th grade students who are now in high school, they're gonna need a little bit extra support with Algebra 1. So 90% of our 8th graders did meet or exceed their progress measure in one area. And then the next slide just gives you the numbers of what each category is. So the first slide is reading. And then we have math. And so we've been seeing all along, we have students who, it is harder to fill the gaps in math than it is in reading. And so this just confirms that. Okay, and then we have high school, and high school was given a rating of a B, and it has some really great glows, which we just saw in Student Outcome Goal 3 with the CCMR indicators. Also, they did demonstrate adequate academic performance across all grade levels, and we did increase the CCMR indicators. And then, of course, those industry-based certifications, which I apologize didn't make it up there on the slide. That's very important. But we also want to continue monitoring individual student growth across all groups of students at the high school level. One area that one subgroup that we're definitely looking at this year is our ESL students who have not exited ESL, which means we need to be working with them in all of our language domains. And so we have given all of those students a class for extra targeted support that's just going to engage them in reading, writing, speaking, and listening, because we really want them to pass that last hurdle for high school. And then we do have the progress measures for Algebra 1. We do not have them for the other areas that were tested in high school. So 27% of our high school students who took Algebra 1 met or exceeded their progress measure for Algebra 1. And I believe that's the last slide there. Okay, what questions do you have?
Did you say why the middle school wasn't rated, or did I miss that?
That is correct. The state did not give the middle school a rating this year.
For what reason?
They did not give ratings to schools that did not achieve an A, B, or C. That's really all we have.
And we just got that data literally today.
Yes.
To disaggregate that, and so take a look at the very specific reasons why that happened. And so we're looking at all of that, and so we'll be cutting through all that.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Did anybody else have any questions?
All right, thank you very much.
they not give the scores to?
So the state decided this year they were not going to rate campuses that did not achieve an A, B, or C rating. And their reasoning for that was to allow for the effect of COVID on our learning and our progress. And so I think that's what we've been seeing all year in our middle school students is just the great effect that the loss of instruction over the year and a half of COVID really had on them. And so that is the greatest area of need for our students right now is our current 7th, 8th, and 9th grade students and possibly a little bit of our 10th grade students. So that gap or that group that of students really seem to have lost the benefit of instruction for various reasons. And so unfortunately it hit the middle school this year with the rating.
And that's one of the things that we've been talking about throughout the course of the year with our MAP scores that we've been looking at is we've been tracking those 7th, 8th, 9th grade students or from this past year anyway, and seeing that correlation. And so we saw that show up now in the STAR test.
Yes.
So it was a pretty accurate predictor.
Yes, absolutely. And so one of the things we have in place is a 9th grade reading class. So those 8th graders who did not meet or accelerate their learning, we looked at the data from their STAR scores and on their MAP growth test and placed only the students who truly need that reading class in that so they can get that targeted support every day. And so that's the area of greatest need. If we can catch up their reading, they'll be much stronger in the other areas.
Okay, on that class that you're stating, so the class, when it was explained to me, is it was because it was for all freshmen, not
So
just...
originally, a couple of years ago, we did implement a 9th grade reading class, and the goal, the vision for that class was to include all 9th graders, and so that was truly the intent. Unfortunately, though, due to class size and teacher capacity, it wasn't as effective as we wanted it to be. So the students who were advanced readers were not getting the individualized attention. They weren't getting pushed, and the students who truly needed the individual support were not getting what they really needed. And so this year we wanted to focus and use that class and reserve those class sections for the students who really have the need for the intervention.
Okay, and I understand that, but that's not how it's explained to us parents. So, yeah.
Okay, and so that is definitely a conversation that the high school campus and we can have with our blended learning coach.
Absolutely.
Definitely, we want to make sure that communication is accurate. Absolutely.
Are there any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to number 10, presentation regarding updates to School View Transportation Program.
So we started the school year this year with a little bit of miscommunication, but we know where it occurred and have put steps in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again in the future. And today we had a really great day. I think that the one exception to that was a driver that was a little anxious to get started and left some of our students and had to come back around. But we had a really great transportation day that was really close to what we were seeing last year. So we've moved forward with the manual piece, but we're ready to begin our implementation of Student View. We are currently installing the hardware that we've received. We have 7 buses that have it up, and Student View will be here to train us on Wednesday. So that's where we are right now, and I look forward to being able to present even more news next board meeting as to where we are.
So I did have a question. So at the community meeting, it was stated that we were not able to go in and change addresses. Was that corrected, or did we get that added onto the system?
So right now, with us doing it manually, we are making that happen, and we will learn more when we have the training on Wednesday as to what that looks like and what we send out to parents as to how to make that work when Student View is implemented.
Did we know there'd be a problem with that early on? When we talked about this, that wasn't gonna be a problem, I don't guess.
Well, just with the manual implementation of it, just having everything out and together to know where our students are going to go from Skyward. We, some of the data that we got, there was just some miscommunication as to students that were changing their drop-off point in the afternoon, but we got together and we worked it out, and that's in place. So I believe that we have out information as to how those changes are going to take place until Skyview, Student View is implemented.
How did that information get relayed?
That would be from the campuses. I'm not certain how they're sending that out.
We've been talking about implementing that, and so anyway, we'll be doing that here in the next day or two. Okay, so we've been working at making that happen, and so I've been talking with our principals and been talking with Melanie as well. So want to make sure all of those ducks are in a row before we just roll that out. So we'll be communicating that probably the next day or two.
What is our expected time of the rollout of the program?
We are expecting to have a complete rollout by September the 6th, the Tuesday when we come back after Labor Day.
And I do have a question about the anticipation up to the rollout. I have kids in the district. The first 3 days of school was a nightmare and was unacceptable for bus riders. I had parents calling their children had been left. Buses didn't even come into neighborhoods. Routes were left off of sheets. Bus drivers didn't even know what routes to drive. So how are we going to anticipate the needs of this new software where we are just coming off of maybe getting this settled and now we're going to implement a whole new software? Where are we going to care for those kids? Because leaving kids at campuses, just like we had today, to me, that's unacceptable. So having to go back and pick up kids, that's a parent's worst nightmare, is to know that your child has been left at a campus and a bus driver doesn't know, well, they're not on my route, they're not supposed to be on my bus, or we have all of this. So how are we preparing and what are we going to do to implement when that software goes live, that we are not leaving children either at home or at a campus?
So the software itself will have all of our student information from Skyward that parents have input as to what they want, where they want their children to be picked up and dropped off, and that will be a part of the information that makes it directly to the drivers.
And so when are we going to start communicating to parents that we have software coming? When are we going to start rolling that out, having parents able to sign up so that we don't come day one and parents have no idea that we've implemented this software? Are we going through a roster of, we have this many kids who have ridden the bus and we're marking those parents off that, okay, all of these parents have registered? What is our due diligence to make sure that those parents now have registered their kids come day one for that software?
We have to see what the training looks like so that we know exactly how to instruct parents on how to fill out and how to implement everything, all the pieces in place, and then move on to the app installation for parents and getting them signed up for that. So to speak in depth about it before the training would be difficult.
I would anticipate that we'll get word out to our parents at the end of this week so that they know that this is at least coming. And it's not going to be full of detail, of course, but we'll be letting them know that it's an automated system coming in. And, you know, we've been fairly open about it anyway. We just haven't had any big announcements or anything, but we'll be doing that later this week.
Did anybody have anything else?
Yeah, when's that training? When did you say that training?
On Wednesday.
That's the first training. Yes, sir.
And who's doing the training?
The people from Student View are coming to train us.
Is all of the bus drivers going to be in on that training? So
Gotcha.
Are they going to do it in between routes?
We spoke about it, and they are giving me a timeline of what each module looks like, the training time, and we're prioritizing with the campus first so that we can work through their schedule, and then the drivers that primarily just drive, we will implement their training and then work on a schedule to get in those who are blended employees. I feel like we'll probably need to spend additional time with some of those that are not on campus and maybe not as used to using the technology.
So in other words, basically, we're going to have two basic groups, those who are on campus and then those who are not.
Correct.
When's the second training going to be? Do you know that?
We don't know that yet. I think it's probably going to depend on how everybody catches it. One of the things that they said is that they don't expect everybody to take in everything in one training because there is a lot. So they will assess how that training goes and where they need to fill in gaps and retrain.
We're going to get all of it as soon as we can, Jay.
Well, I mean, you don't have, about 21 days, 14 days, I mean, you're gonna have time to run out quick to get something, pretty definite out the parents, if we don't stick with it, go.
And so, just, have we already started the implement of rolling out the IDs with the scanners in them?
Yes, all of the students who are already registered have RFID IDs, and drivers, we've been asking them to have students present them as they're getting on and off so that we're already setting the expectation as to what it will look like so that that goes a little bit more smoothly. And just as soon as we have training, the buses that already have the hardware implemented, we'll begin to use those, so it will be a slow rollout as everything is installed, and after we learn on Wednesday, I'll know more about it.
Okay, you said they're being presented, so I thought what it was presented to us is that when the kid gets on the bus, they just have to walk on, they're not having to have a kid take off their bag and show them the tag, right? It's just when they're walking through.
It's just so that the drivers are letting the kids know that they're going to expect to see and have their badge, just so that they kind of set that expectation so that they're prepared to have their badge with them every day. Of course, our littles have them attached to their backpack, but our middle and high school will have them on lanyards just so that they know that they're going to be needing those. It's something that's going to be coming on the bus.
Question about the littles. I have a second grader. He is a car rider most of the time. There may be an opportunity where he may have to get on the bus with my daughter. I know that he wears one at school, I would assume.
They're different cards. So their RFD chip cards are actually their breakfast cards, which every student has on their backpack. And if they don't, we're getting those made, and Tina's helping us with that.
Okay.
Their ID they wear at school has their picture on it. Those stay at school. We did not want picture IDs on their backpacks for safety reasons for both of our campuses. So it only has the first initial and the last name. Has the barcode for breakfast, but it also will scan them on the bus.
Okay, because I don't. So you're saying like all students don't have those just yet? We're not fully.
Almost all of.
Okay.
Almost all of ours do, but it does a dual purpose on our campuses. It's the breakfast scan.
Okay.
For free breakfast, and then it's also their bus.
Okay, because I know AJ's looked a little different. I wasn't sure if his was just because I was concerned that he's mainly a car rider. If I needed to put him on the bus for whatever he's with Avery, he could.
No,
Okay.
we distributed them to everyone.
Great.
So these kids, they gonna scan on and off, right?
Yes. And it's a scan, it's a proximity, like the way that we get into the building. It's that type. They don't actually scan a barcode. They just have to kind of hold it close as they go by.
When we did A3 last year in the spring and we ran that as a trial, even our littles really, I mean, even if they just turned their back and they were close to the scanner, it would pick it up and beep, and they can hear it because it's audible. So it does not take long. It does not slow up the process very long at all.
And just for example, the pilot group last year, even the littles still had that card, and they got the hardware installed on the bus that I was driving, and they were trying to scan when they got on the bus. So they've got the process.
And I had one of my drivers come in today because of the 7, they're beginning to see it, and they saw the hardware, and he was trying to scan his badge. He was ready, so.
Any other questions? No? Do you have any other questions? No. Okay, we'll move to number 11. Thank you. Consider approval of resolution of the board concerning extension of leave and COVID-19 protocols.
Okay, if you would, in your packet under number 11, we've got a resolution to extend leave, and we've also got mitigation plan. And basically, these are following kind of reducing what we've had in the past. In the past, what we've had on our mitigation plan is that students were out for 10 days with COVID. We're reducing that down now to 5, and also staff members to 5. We're recommending that for the mitigation plan. And also, and we have to be careful with these things, and we talked about this extensively, because COVID's still there. I mean, our board president isn't here tonight because he's got COVID. And so it's still out there. But we also want to make sure that, that we're not keeping people at home unnecessarily. Certainly, if they still have symptoms, you know, they need to do what they need to do. So that would be the mitigation plan recommendation. And the other one is the resolution for the board regarding extension of leave. Last year, we had that recommendation for up to 10 days, 10 consecutive work days, and we recommend that resolution this year for 5 days as opposed to 10.
Yeah, assuming you don't have no symptoms. In 5 days, if you still got symptoms, then.
Correct. Yes, that's different, but yeah, in 5 days you can come on back. Yes, sir. And you don't have to, and what we're doing here with our staff is they don't have to use those personal days.
So it's gonna be paid time off from us?
Yes, ma'am. And we did this throughout COVID, and it was a huge relief to our staff. At this point, you know, we don't have a, you know, we don't have a whole lot of people that are, thank the Lord, you know, it's greatly reduced at this point, COVID is, but still yet, you know, if I have to do that and I have to use my personal leave, that's a big thing for me as an employee. And so our staff would, I don't think we'll have to use this a lot, but I do think that having this for our staff is really something that it's a nice thing for them, so.
Did anybody else have any questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second? All in favor? The motion passes. Move to item number 12, consider approval of grant to purchase 3 buses.
All right, Mr. Moore, you want to talk about buses?
One of the allowable uses of the ESSER grant that we have is partly based on safety and security and healthy return to school for students. So one of the things that Melanie and I discussed whenever we were looking at the true numbers of kids and the number of buses, and the simple fact that, as many of you remember, last year, I mean, we had them stacked in there like cordwood. And so what this does is, by using our ESSER, some of our ESSER funds, and having 3 more buses, then we can space out our kids so that they're not just stacked on top of each other. And so that's part of the safety and security and safe return to school for students. Any questions?
Yeah, so, we talked about putting on more resource officers.
Mm-hmm.
So, is this money you're talking about from this account, it can be used for that too?
No.
Okay.
This is directly related to students.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Yes, sir. No. It's from the same bus manufacturer or the supplier that we've consistently used.
And what all can the ESSER funds be used for?
Ma'am?
The ESSER funds, what can they be used for? Not just buses, but what else could they be used for?
Supplemental instructional materials, schools, like safe return to school. I just purchased a bunch of new disinfectant and wipes and all those things to disinfect with, sprayers, those sorts of things.
I know we've used some already. How much do we have left if we were to purchase these buses?
We still have a good deal left.
SR2? Are you talking about SR2?
Yeah, just SR2.
We have quite a bit of SR2 left. Over
And we're looking at some other opportunities that we can use that qualify for the acceptable use of the grant.
Does it expire? Like, how long do we have to use the money?
Till 2023.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Are these buses in stock, or how long will they go?
That's one of the things when Melanie and I started the conversation, she called the supplier, and they had 3 sitting. They were just finishing them up, so we shouldn't have any issue getting them in here pretty quick. And the other piece of that is we've had to incorporate some of the buses that we wouldn't typically use, like our activity buses, because parts and broke down and can't get parts for this or this computer chip, that sort of thing. So we've had to pull in some of our activity buses to actually run routes. So this would alleviate that as well. And then with all the activities that we've got about to crank up, I mean, we're about to be bus poor trying to get everything covered, but not with 3.
Do they come with drivers?
I thought they were like robotic, kind of self-propelled, kind of. No, unfortunately, no.
A motion made by Joe. Second by Greg. All in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Item number 13, the consent agenda. Did anybody have any questions or want to go over anything specific in the consent agenda?
I make a motion to consent the agenda.
Motion by Jay, second by Greg. All in favor? The motion passes 6-0. Item number 14, consider approval of the insurance proposal for the 22-23 coverage year.
So we had Mr. Scott Parnell that was going to be here from TASB tonight. Could not make it. He's had a conflict. So Megan, you want to address this?
Yes, sir. So last board meeting, y'all had asked me to go and reach out to other insurance companies to see if they would bid on our property, auto, liability, all of those things. Unfortunately, I did not get anybody to want to bid on mostly our property due to the fact that we have a pending roof claim. So we are looking at TASB. So what we have here are the 3 options. The first option that we have is the most similar, although it is $30,000 more. It is the same deductible. And that would be the recommendation that I have going forward. It's the same coverage, but obviously the price is more. The premium is more due to cost of construction and labor materials and things like that. So
The premium is more than last year.
yes, it's about $30,000 more than last year.
But we were still within the timeline to get quotes. We were just declined. They
We
didn't
were-
want to do business with us.
Well, we were kind of pushing that time frame, being as 9/1 was our cutoff limit for insurance coverage for the 22-23 school year, and also with the short turnaround, and then with the pending roof claim, a lot of property insurance companies did not want to bid.
So I think that next year we'll get an earlier start on it.
Yes, we
And,
can certainly do that.
And see if we can get competitive with it.
I'll make a motion to approve the insurance proposal for 22-23.
I think it's this first option, Liz.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion passes. We'll go to number 15, consider approval of payment for roof moisture scan.
Okay, so what Megan was talking about was the case that we currently have as far as our roofs are concerned. In order to present that case, we had to go through a moisture scan, and that moisture scan is $31,455. And so what we've been reassured is that TASB will pick up that cost with any claim that they pay off. However, since that's not completed yet, that's going to have to be a reimbursement. So what this would be is that we pay that $31,455, and then that we would be reimbursed by TASB at the completion of all of this. Tomorrow I have a virtual meeting with a roofer, with the HVAC guys, and to get all of that together. But as far as this part of it is concerned, that's the moisture scan. Now, the moisture scan was necessary in order to do this case because it's the only thing that's going to show how damaged the roof was. So without the moisture scan, what they're saying is TASB couldn't even make a claim one way or the other as far as how much of that roof to replace. But nonetheless, this item tonight is simply to pay the moisture scan with the idea that TASB would be reimbursing us when all this is finished.
Is that whether it done anything for you or not? If the moisture scan wound up not doing us no good and nothing happened, do we get our money back? Or?
Well, and that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Okay.
Well, this says required action, but
TASB is going to pay at least something?
That is that's basically in the email that was sent to TASB was basically, do you want to pay it now or do you want to pay it later? But nonetheless, yeah, it's going to have to come out of TASB, but we don't have assurance of that at this point. Okay.
So they've already done this work.
They've already done the moisture scan in order. No, they had to do the moisture scan in order to go forward with the claim.
But we're not 100% sure that TASB's going to pay it.
That's what the guy told us when he was here. Okay, but nothing's done till it's done. Okay.
But we have to pay it because we've
incurred
asked
it.
for the services.
We've incurred it.
Right. Okay.
And what's the price of that?
It's $31,455, and that's in your blue folder. You should have that. That's the invoice to it.
And where does that money come from? I mean, hopefully we get reimbursed, but when we pay it.
Well, we have right now the money that we received from TASB initially for the HVAC systems. We have not used any of that money as of yet. So out of the 1.4 million that we did get, this 31,000 will come out of that.
Yeah.
And then if we get reimbursed, we'll put it back to that money.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
So the big meeting tomorrow is also to talk about coordinating replacing roof, which we're hoping to be able to do on more so than they said originally, while we're at the same time replacing HVACs. That's the coordination that has to be done there.
Anybody else have any questions? No. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion we pay it.
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Move to item 16, discussion concerning Texas Department of Transportation proposal to purchase property.
So this is just a discussion item tonight. We don't have we're not under a big timeline or anything, but this is just to show you, and our attorney, Mr. Dubner, has this in his office as well. I wanted him to go over it. But you can see that this is for the TxDOT straightening of 157 that's going to come right here north of our building on the north and the east side. And so now the whole packet that they sent is about 1.5 inches thick, okay? But the meat and the potatoes of it is right here in these 3 pages. So it says the department believes that at this stage of the purchase process, it is mutually beneficial To confirm that based on an appraisal, the department is authorized to offer you $395,299 for the property. So,
Do you have the actual guidelines? I haven't seen any stakes out there or anything.
I,
See what I'm buying.
exactly,
Selling.
exactly. I have not. So, but that's why that's why we're just kind of talking about this tonight. And again, this is in the hands of our attorney, so that we can, I've seen so many versions of this road, Joe.
Yeah, I know, I have to.
And I don't know which one is gonna stick. But I do know they're coming a lot closer to our property here. In fact, I was hoping at one point, should we ever have to, increase the size of this building, we could go out to the east. Well, that's not gonna happen, because that road is gonna come pretty close to our parking lot, actually. But it has to do with, moving in between these power poles out here, these power lines.
But it also states in there that it has no detrimental effect on the rest of our property. I wanna see exactly where it is, because if we're left with a little sliver of property that's not good for anything, you can't build on it for anything, then that's detrimental to our property.
Well, that definitely changes any plans we might have had for this building.
Right, so.
And it would make sense to go out that direction. But it limits the use of this building for the future.
And you're saying with the construction, it's not gonna allow us to like extend this road like another outlet for the primary?
No, I believe it actually will.
Oh, okay.
I believe it actually
We
will.
just can't develop out that way, the road might?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you get a, sketch from TxDOT so that we can possibly look at that?
I will try, Joe. Yeah, I would think we should be able to get something, but I'm not sure how quickly, but I will certainly try.
Yeah, and for some little BOs clear their land, like
I think all things are on the table, as long as there's an offer and, Again, that's just discussion, just wanted to bring it to your attention, so.
Any other questions on that? No?
I just have a due date on it, does it not? Never mind.
It said like 30 days, I thought.
Yeah, that's what I thought I read that too.
I thought on the first page, I think.
So we have to give them an answer within,
We'll get back to him.
okay,
Well, no, that'd be in the bus.
yeah, maybe.
I think it was the bus.
So we'll move to item number 17, executive session 551.074, and we will go into executive session at 9:01 p.m. 36. And we will skip to item 20. 20, discussion concerning the hiring of additional Venus ISD police officers.
Echo.
Chief, do we need to have that paper distributed, or do we already have that out here?
I think they got it in their stuff, didn't they, Liz? The documents?
I don't see it.
Yes. I gotta put my glasses on so I can see mine.
Oh, this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
If you'll go to the first one for me, Liz, please. Okay, this document right here that's broken down, that's actually my time spent last school year. 15% of my duties were as the chief administrator for the police department and the duties that follow underneath that section. With emergency management, all the case filing, the lab stuff, filing cases, meetings, trainings, stuff like that was at 15%. That 15% should be a lot higher. It really should be. 40% of my time, which is the majority of my time, was spent at the high school dealing with situations at the high school. Writing reports, directing traffic, monitoring stuff, student mental health responses, counseling students, investigating crimes, and the safety and security of the school. And those same things follow underneath each school that I have broken down, 20% at the middle school, 8% at the elementary, and then 7% at the primary school. And then the outbuildings regarding administration, daycare, ag barn, welding center, some of those other kind of things are put in that aspect also. So if we were to hire officers, the next document is breaking up where those positions would be used. And I'm just going out way above. 3 officers is what's really needed. That way I can put an officer at every campus. I would move off the high school campus and move to the primary. That way I don't have as many cases and report writing stuff or anything like that to do. I can still monitor traffic, assist with that kind of stuff that goes on over there, make sure the buildings are secure, and still supervise the officers and make sure that we are hitting the standards by the state for our safety and security that we're mandated to do. I would also, if we did 3 officers or 2 officers, one of the positions would be a sergeant position, because I need somebody that has some experience, especially supervisor experience, law enforcement experience. If I'm absent for whatever reason, or if I have to go to a meeting or something else, they can take charge and they will have the same training that I do. They wouldn't have the same rank, but they would have a sergeant position. That way they can take control of things. And of course, 2 officers to break it up into those schools. That's what I would project. I know there's always a budget issue with those things, and it always is for any part of it. But in order to keep our kids safe, I can tell you these first 4 days of school, I've been pretty busy. A lot of stuff going on, not just traffic things, but stuff at the schools and trying to get in and walk the schools and check the schools and everything else. It's been pretty busy so far. So I broke down some costs. Costs are expensive. In order, when we're talking about salaries, I've got to be comparable to agencies around, not just school districts around, but city departments. And this was written before Burleson ISD came out with armed security officers last week. And what they're projecting, what they're putting their information was $58,000 to $81,000 for pay for an officer on campus. I think that turned a lot of heads, especially agencies around here that are looking to leave their agencies and go somewhere else, because you have to be a law enforcement to actually take one of these positions in Burleson School District that they're doing. But I think 52 for an officer is comparable to those around, and definitely would make a sergeant about $60,000, just so I can get people in here. The good thing is, I've talked to some people, I've talked to some other agencies. I've got 2 or 3 people that are interested. That's a good thing for me. Some people that are ready to leave city because they're tired of dealing with media and personnel and community members just bashing city police departments. But they also want to, after our incident in May, they want to go provide safety and security for kids. So they're looking at that transition too. And some of these other school districts that I've talked to, they have more people after Uvalde say, hey, you know what, I'm going to step up, I'm going to go do campus security. And a lot of those guys are taking their 20 years of retirement and moving on to school districts. So I'm hoping it's not going to be hard once we do decide something to actually get employees and get somebody hired. The first position that I would hire would be the sergeant. That way that person can help me hire the other officers.
So the sergeant, so what does this look like as far as reporting structure? There's you and then a sergeant and the 2 officers report to the sergeant?
They will report to the sergeant, and then I'll have, when we're talking about criminal cases and stuff like that, I have the final authority over it. I approve the final authority on it. But it would go through a sergeant as a review, and then come to me for final approval.
What is the normal, so what is the normal protocol of how many people report to a sergeant and then how many people report to the chief?
It all depends on size. So if we had a 10-man department, usually 5 to 7 subordinates per sergeant is kind of what you look at.
I just think and I don't, I mean, I'm not a law enforcement, I don't know anything really about it at all. But I just feel like with 4 total officers, sergeant, chief, you know, however that falls, that to have a chief, a sergeant, and 2 officers, having that sergeant seems a little, I mean, I know it's 10,000 more, or I guess about what, 8,000 more. It just seems like a lot versus maybe 3 officers and then you.
And it could be 3 officers starting off without a sergeant, but if I'm not here, I've got to have trust in somebody that's going to be able to handle those command authorities.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, but I would hope that the officers you're hiring you have trust in anyway.
I do. Most school district police departments around here, even the 2-man departments that are currently around here, it's a chief and a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody with authority, because when you have other agencies coming in for whatever kind of situations, somebody with a supervisor signia on them is going to get more respect and be able to deal with those officers than just an officer.
But you would be right, I mean, if something happens and you're in, the farthest you probably go work related is what, Johnson County? Or do you go, I mean, how far
if I
are you
have
away?
to leave to
Yeah,
go
if you
do
have
something?
to leave.
Cleburne usually, a lot of our chief meetings are in Godley, so it's a little bit north of there. So,
But
just
you
a
would
little
be
bit.
back here within 45 minutes?
If it's a serious situation, I'll make it in 20.
Where we needed somebody here where people respect them, because you said they wouldn't be, that to get the respect,
Right.
you need somebody here that's in a manager, I'm saying manager, but in a supervisory role. So you don't think that other officers would get respect where they would be listened to?
Well, no, they would, but that's just how police departments run. That's how officers see different people. You have an officer on a scene and you have a sergeant on a scene, you're definitely going to get 2 different kind of communications.
Who's been covering you now when you leave? I mean,
Just nobody.
so I mean, 2 officers here would be better than that.
It would, yeah. And I'm asking for 3 because I don't want to leave a campus unsecured.
I think my question more of is, do we really need a sergeant level, maybe 3 officers, you know, while we're starting out?
my real question is, as much as I like the idea of these officers, and if there's any way we can do it, I want to. But my biggest question is that the $8,000 as much as the $410,000 at the bottom when you add up the salary and what you're gonna need for them. So, I mean.
Yeah, I think it all rolls up. I think every piece rolls up. The 8,000 here, it's like going to the grocery store. You've spent 200.
I'm not sure that
No, and I agree with you, Greg. I think it all rolls up. The little pieces of everything rolls up into that big, huge number. So where can we maybe?
But there was an issue, you know, in this last incident where there was a leadership question. You know, that was a large part of that report, and I mean, I think that it really is better to have a second in charge myself. That's just my opinion.
Let me follow up on that. My son is a sergeant for the police department. When Robert leaves, if you've got 3 officers, everybody can't be in charge when he leaves. He's gonna have to choose one of those officers, says you're in charge. In Fort Worth, if somebody is an acting sergeant, even though they don't have the rank of sergeant, if they're an acting sergeant, they're a corporal. As an acting sergeant, they still got sergeant pay if you're an acting sergeant.
While they're acting?
Yep, if you're an acting.
If they take over that role for any length of time while they're doing that role,
in Fort
they
Worth-
get
in Fort Worth,
differential
they're gonna
pay.
get the pay, so.
Gotcha.
Realistically, if it works that way, here, the 8,000, as Greg says, is not gonna be that much. It's gonna be determining all the rest of it, the package, what we wanna go. And I agree, if we're going to hire even somebody, I think the chief is probably gonna designate him as a sergeant rather than just an officer. Cause if he's gone, he's gonna say, okay, you're acting sergeant. If I'm wrong, Robert, you follow up on
That's true, 'cause somebody's got to lead who's here, yes. And Mr. Hoffman, at the bottom of that sheet right there, there's 2 different salaries. There's one equipment salary and a new vehicle, or there's the one below it.
With the used vehicle.
Yeah, and so let me address the vehicle situation real quick, because I've done some more research since I put this out and got some more costs from different people. One thing I'm looking at is Venus PD has 2 Tahoes sitting over there they're getting rid of. One of them is trash. It's not going to work as a vehicle at all. So either tomorrow or the next day, myself and Darren, our mechanic, and Darren is a very good mechanic. We're going to go look at the one that's actually running and is decent and kind of evaluate that and maybe try to work a deal with them if we go this route. So there would be one vehicle at a pretty low cost, more than likely. Over the last month, new vehicles have jumped up 8 to 10%. And that's vehicle and the equipment that goes in a vehicle. I've looked into leased ones. I can't get any leased ones unless I buy 7 vehicles. I've looked into other departments, even up to Kansas State, and they don't have any at the moment, but he's going to get back to me if they do put some in the line. But so that normal 50,000 actually has jumped up to almost 54,000. But I talked to my car guy, and he said, you know, I've got Dodge Chargers, and it's a newer Chargers, and those costs are, let's see, 43,000, you know, and that's fully loaded with everything in it, $43,000. He said he has 30 that are coming his way. He's got about 15 of those 30 in. He went ahead and put 3 with my name on it, even without me doing a PO on it, just so, because I've worked with him so much and I've bought so many vehicles. So let me just put 3 with your name, that way they're not gone. in the next week or something like that. And when y'all make a decision, let me know as soon as possible and everything else.
So I have a question. So, when we were talking earlier, you said we're gonna buy the buses with the ESSER money. So because it said something about safety and all that. So can we not use ESSER money since we have $1 million?
What the safety aspect of it with the federal grant is
I mean, I don't know.
Can we get a golf cart?
Look like. I know that sounds funny, but.
And we've discussed some of that stuff in possibly using White Fleet and then one car and then kind of budget in for later down the road or something like that. One thing that I want to caution on is Mansfield ISD years ago, the chief wanted to buy Ford Tauruses or whatever they were, non-police rated. And so when they had the shooting at Timberview High School, those vehicles, by policy, since they're not police rated and everything else, couldn't make that code 3 to that location because of those issues, because it's not that we have to go that far. We're right here together. Trust me, I would do everything I can to look for vehicles that we can get at a good price that will last us 2 to 5 years and start kind of building towards replacing those with better vehicles. That's why I've reached out to Chief Groom in the city. Are you about to get rid of those? Because I know they've been sitting on your lot for a bit, and I was told that one of them actually is still in decent condition and it can be utilized. And we've got a mechanic that can do a lot of that mechanic work himself.
Will these cars be going home with the officer?
Not unless they're on call. And usually what I do is I'd have a different person on call once a week. And they would still have to be within a certain radius.
What would they be on call for? I'm sorry, I mean, I guess it's just.
For any incident, say a building gets broken into or there's a threat that comes in the middle of the night, okay? We're gonna answer that call and we're gonna go start investigating that night, things like that.
What does it mean the car couldn't go to a code 3? I don't know what a code 3 means.
It couldn't haul rear end to get to where they need to get to as quick as they can. With lights and sirens running fast, because those cars, minimal lights and everything else. And I've talked to my guy and everything else, and if we put lights on vehicles, especially used vehicles, and the one that Venus PD has does not have lights on it. They've already stripped all that stuff off. The only thing it has is a spotlight on the side, and it's got the cage, which is good because the cages are kind of expensive and everything else, so you can transport. But I would go minimal lights on those, front grille, back, and a couple side ones. That way it's visible if it's directing traffic or something else like that. So I can make those costs go down without putting light bars on top and sirens, big sirens and everything else too, so.
So what's the life of a car like that? Because I'm just thinking right now our district is so small.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't know if we need to be code 3 to get somewhere from the high school to the middle, from the middle school or from the high school to the primary, because we're so close.
How fast can you drive? I mean, with all the traffic, I might beat you running across on foot.
Right.
But then, I mean, if you're running from the middle school to high school, I mean, you're not gonna jump in your car to come down and then go back out. You're just gonna run over.
It's not going to be very far. Now, the furthest that we'd have to go is if there's an incident up north with a bus or something else and stuff, and that would be the incidents that we deal with. Now, you asked how long they would last. So I've had my vehicle probably just over 2.5 years, and there's about 32,000 miles on it. They're not going to get much travel time on them. Okay.
Because, I mean, I don't think our district's gonna grow that big, that quick, where we would,
Need to buy 3 brand new ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need some time, just something to kind of get us by till we can put something in our budget going forward to get these things.
I agree, and that's why I have options and everything else, but some of the used vehicles from other agencies that they put on auction are running 32 to 33 right now. But that's where it takes research to find agencies that you have a relationship with or something that's fixing to get rid of a vehicle or something else.
Can I ask a really simple question?
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
it's a two-part. How many Suburbans do we have right now as a district?
I mean, what?
There's
Suburbans.
5 or 6, 6 or 7.
6 or 7? And so what would be the cost or what would be the reasonable time to convert a Suburban? We have the vehicle. I can't imagine we have a need for
It's
all.
not police rated.
It's what?
It's not police rated.
Does it have to be police rated to be a school vehicle like that? Because, I mean, police rated, I would assume you don't have lights or sirens or anything like that. But is that an option to convert
So police
to
rated,
just do this?
a lot of the police
Right?
rating.
Just campus, limited to campus.
A lot of the police rating on a vehicle has to do with the suspension and the disbursement of weight and everything else. So if we had someone that came on campus, started shooting somebody, and we had to chase them somewhere, one of those Suburbans is not gonna last, because once we take a curve at 45, 50 miles an hour, it's gonna flip. Compared to a police rated vehicle that could probably take it 55 to 60 and still not flip.
So then,
I think if I could kind of summarize some of that, I think what everybody's saying is that everybody wants to be as safe as possible and secure as possible. If we can possibly, the vehicle seems to be a place where we might be able to save money, and that's kind of what you're saying, is it? Now, I will say that if you guys have looked at used vehicles today, they're higher than they've ever been. They're disproportionately higher. But if we can save money somewhere on this, that would probably be the place to do it.
Well, have y'all talked about anything about money or?
Just briefly, and so another thing too that is worth mentioning is that salary cost. You might as well add 18% because that's just base salary for those people. You might as well add 18%. It's not benefits or anything else. So you're probably looking at I just took your 165 number. You're probably going to make it 195,000 just in salaries. But that's just assuming you went with what was presented right here.
So I do have a question about that. So I know I brought it up the last board meeting we were in. There's a couple of schools that are going armed security, not police officers. So is that a difference on?
It depends on how you do it. Some of them do it through a third contract. Some of them start their own. I'm not sure the process of doing your own. I know Arlington ISD, they have their own and they commission them somehow, but I don't think they're armed.
Even if we didn't do armed at this, I would like to have armed everywhere, but because, like we said, it is quite a bit of money, so I don't know.
I think you gotta have armed, and I think there's some liability maybe with that for us and the school, if they're not bona fide officers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of schools that are doing it, a lot.
They are, and a lot of those are doing metal detecting at the front, stuff like that a police officer cannot do. You can't sit me out in front of a school with a metal detector or a wand and say, I need you to search everybody through there, because that's an illegal search for a law enforcement officer. So you would have to do a security officer or safety monitor is what a lot of the schools are going to, is more of a safety monitor. But if you're talking about armed law enforcement officers that are not police department for your school district, you're looking at 58 to 81,000 like Burleson ISD is doing.
Well, I know the city of Venus is proposing in their budget for 4 additional officers. And I believe this 52 is a little bit above what Chief Groom has suggested that he was willing to pay.
I think he was shooting for 53, 54 is what he was telling me.
I think he quoted about 51, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong.
And that's negotiable. I'm just trying to set what kind of the salaries that I've looked at and everything else. I can guarantee you right now, I'm busy. I'm swamped. Okay?
How long will it take you to hire?
If the money is there, I've got several people from agencies around that said, let me know. I can't guarantee that, but I do have some fillers out there, and I do have people that are interested. I do have a couple people that have supervisory skills and time that they're ready to leave their place and go somewhere else if everything looks good.
And Ms. Megan, how is the money, I mean,
Probably about $65,000 less or something like that.
65,000 plus another 20,000 plus another.
I'd rather have an extra officer minus a car.
That was my
And
question.
then go.
Do we have to have a vehicle for every single officer, or can
we
we?
just get one extra vehicle and just you and the
Because
sergeant
like,
have
yeah,
a vehicle?
exactly. And then
we can work. My main thing right now is I need manpower to make
I
our
agree with
schools secure and to be able to get things done and have knowledge of what's going on in the schools. It needs to be manpower first, and I would say one vehicle that's going to last for a while, and we work towards the rest.
Because I would think one vehicle, even if we're like just parking it in between the high school and the middle school, that seems to be pretty accessible for two people if they're just running to get in a vehicle. But I feel like right now, the manpower, the presence on campus versus the car is our priority.
Yeah, and so you mentioned golf cart, about 12,000 for a golf cart.
I mean, that's better than 20,000.
Yeah, no, I agree,
Chief, let me-
but that is an option, and I've actually discussed that once before, especially for events and stuff, when we have middle school volleyball going on, JV football going on, we've got basketball going on, it can be used, and I'm not spending gas or anything else, it's charged by batteries or whatever else, or we get a gas one, either way, so.
Chief, let me ask you this.
Crown Vic is gone. It's gone.
But that's an excellent question.
Gator ain't that, a Gator, John Deere Gator ain't that high.
Exactly. I mean, even a four-seater golf cart you can get for about 9,000, 10,000. I mean, just depending. But to me, it would be easier for two campuses, to even do that.
I don't,
I do think that our campuses being so close together, it would, I mean, if a situation occurs and you're at the primary and you need to get to the middle school, it's probably gonna be faster to run to get there versus trying to get in a vehicle, drive around, find a place to park.
I just cut through Joe's.
Exactly.
You can run through Joe's driveway, he won't mind, right, Joe?
I literally,
That's the same thing. You're not gonna get in your car to drive from the middle school to the high school.
I had to go to I had to go on campuses this morning, and there are certain times, and you know the times, or drop off time. I pulled out here, and I just pulled over in the softball parking lot and parked, and I started walking. But here's probably a really stupid question, but it won't be my first. I mean, if Hollis or I have to go somewhere, we go out and get in our truck and we go. I mean, how bad would it be to have officers do the same, their personal vehicles? Now, I'm not talking about we're not gonna chase anybody down in my little Tacoma, but I'm saying just to go campus to campus.
You got to remember they're on duty.
What's
Okay?
that?
They're on duty, they're in uniform. their insurance, if something was to happen, is not going to cover them at all if there was something to happen. But we can work around, for the time being, you know, the white fleet or whatever else and stuff. But if they're on campus, if we have each campus covered, they shouldn't have to go campus to campus very often.
I would think the vehicle we have would be mainly for off-campus visits, right? If we're transporting, right?
You know, whatever else, or meetings.
If you have to
or
go to
something like that.
training or something, you have to be in uniform in a
Yeah.
marked vehicle
and
doing
some
that.
of some of those things, trainings, White Fleet will work just fine, or
Okay.
whatever else, or meetings and stuff,
Okay.
and leave that vehicle here on campus. But it would be good to have at least 2 vehicles that are marked and everything else.
Okay. So do we have salaries in budget, or is that what we're saying we can't do it all, but can we do, like, what does our budget look like?
It's pretty tight right now. So,
At all of the campuses, from what the principals were telling me, everything that we've put into budget is gonna be accounted for. So there's not gonna be many vacancies or any room to really move. There might be a position or two that you could repurpose some of those funds, but I don't know what those would be off the top of my head, and what those amounts would be, but.
Is there any state assistance with any
There is,
of this?
for this, the board can do. That's what the board wants to do.
the board can,
Our fund balance is 9 million.
And what do we have to have for operational?
3 months.
What's that number?
So what does not having, I'm not.
6 or
like I say,
7.
the vehicle is the least thing that I'm worried about in this thing. But what does that say to that officer that you're trying to get, that he ain't gonna have a car? Does that mean anything to him? I mean, I'm just asking you, that'd be something you'd know.
Depends on what officer I get, to tell you the truth. Some officers, when it's discussed with them, they're like, I don't want to do that. And some officers that are retired, and you know, and when I say retired, 20, 25, 30 years, and they're still kicking really, really well, that's not going to matter to them, because they're going to be at elementary or something else, and they don't want to get in a car and chase somebody.
let me suggest that we do this going forward, that we look at this with 1, 2, 3 officers, cars, without cars, you know, we can just do the math in that way. But then we'll have to look at, like Joe said, you know, are we willing to go on fund balance for that? Or how do we want to do that? Because there's not a lot of wiggle room right now. Everybody wants safety and security. We don't want anybody uncovered on our campuses, and nobody around this table wants that. But let's look at the dollars and cents of it, and we'll bring that back next month then. Does that sound good? And that way we could look at what does 1 officer look like, what is 2, what is 3.
Okay, but I get what you're saying, and I'm okay with that, but he is covered right now, so what are we gonna do to help him not be so covered where he can't do something if something is to happen?
We can't vote on it tonight anyway, because it's not on the agenda, but I think if he comes back with all the money information, then I think next month we would have that to look at, and then we can put it on the agenda to take action.
Man, I would think we could get something. I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's saying that he is so busy. Like, how are we going to help him before he? I mean, is there someone we can hire for part time for right now? I
Is
mean,
this something we can get together in a week? We meet Monday.
We can do it whenever you want us to.
Covered, and we have. I think this is.
Exactly, and that's my point. We can do fund balance, but we can't live off fund balance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to see as many options as you can think of that we can make this work.
Yeah, and that's really what I was talking about too, Greg.
Even right down to how we can squeeze it out of the budget.
Hey, Mr. Hoffman, TxDOT wants that property right there.
I'm cool with that, give me some state.
Look like we're even working on doing something. I mean, there's gotta be a way we can get.
We can.
No, just the 30th, Joe, don't give us no more. Or the 27th.
We meet a few.
I would like to see though, I would like just the different
Yes.
options, the cost, and then I agree, where's that money gonna come from? I'd like to see all of it.
Yeah, consistent basis.
Yeah, because if we get three officers, that's $165,000 every year.
195.
Yeah, it's close to 200.
Yeah,
Would-
correct.
With benefits.
Just call it 200.
Yes.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions? Nope. So we'll move to item number 21, consider approval of primary school computer lab aide position.
So we had a certified teacher in this position previous to this, and that certified teacher is now in a classroom, a first grade teacher, and so we don't necessarily have to have a certified teacher there, and so that's why we're asking for an aide instead of a teacher in that position. So that would actually be cheaper.
Do you already have somebody in that spot, or are we?
I don't think we have, do we? I don't think we have anybody in that spot. Yeah, so,
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to make a motion? Motion by Kirby, anybody second? Second by Joe, all in favor? Motion passes. We'll go to item number 22, reports.
very quickly on superintendent's report, you had this in your blue folder, and it shows our enrollment as well as our attendance. We were 2210 on the first day. Now we're 2279 as of today, then we have we're between 97 and 98% on our attendance on those, which is fantastic. If we can maintain that attendance, that would be super. As far as facilities are concerned, what I'd like to do is, as we said, we have the bond committee coming up. One of the things that this board needs to do is sit down and talk about what the different shapes that bond could take. Bond committee is going to be great. It's community members and all that. Ultimately, that falls on the shoulders of this board as far as what this board wants to do. So the bond committee will make a recommendation, but also as we talk about this, we want to make sure that as we look at all aspects of it, what I'm proposing that we do is we have a team building where we actually sit down and we look at some of the best ways to divide this up. In other words, if we go through and say, and I don't care what we build, but let's say we want to build a high school. If it's going to be $225 million, I don't know that we're going to have 2 dimes left over after something like that. But if you went in there and said, well, what if we build a partial high school? And again, I'm just giving you examples. And so you build a two grade level high school. Then there's also money to go in and redo 3rd Street and make that an alternative campus or an intermediate campus, and then to do possibly some other upgrades. Then come back a few years later and finish out the high school. That's a different option. So, or maybe do, you know, something different, who knows? But I think the board needs to sit down and talk about those things. We've bounced a lot of things around, but I think that'd be a good team building thing. So, anyway, so any thoughts or ideas on that?
It says no.
Right.
You've destroyed all your credibility with the community. So somehow the bond committee has to be.
Yes, sir. And
That's
it's,
what I'm worried about, because everything I've seen tonight, it was put on this board, it was about a high school, about a high school. It seems to be the only thing we're putting out there. We might need to be putting out there to them that, hey, guys, as great as that could be, we can't afford that. That's what we might ought to be putting out there to them.
well, and I think that's what we are doing, Jay.
Well, I didn't see that one time tonight now.
Well,
Bigger packet is in there. We discussed every, yeah, because I was.
so I have engaged John Martin, our bond counsel, and so we're getting together here in a couple of weeks, and he's going to be engaged, and he's going to basically tell us also, you know, here's about what you're looking at as far as bond capacity is concerned. So but this is exactly why I'm saying that we need to sit down and have those discussions
Yeah, 'cause
as a board.
here's the thing.
And again, that's why we have to have those discussions, because we don't want to, we need to be, as a community, all in one accord on this thing. And sure, there are gonna be people that, you know, think this way or think that way, but ultimately, we all want what's best for our kids. And we certainly don't wanna do something that is going to leave us short. So anyway, I'll stop with that.
Well, then, I mean, I won't.
Well, the state's already got us capped. There's only a very small pie there. And you're right.
Yeah, we're looking over it, that's the problem.
Robert says John Martin was gonna be able to tell us exactly, you guys have only got $110 million if you go to the maximum of $1.50.
Yeah.
Or 50 cents.
And that'd be good, 'cause that's gonna be an eye opener for some people.
And then, you know, and then Huckabee is gonna say, well, it's gonna cost you $250 million to build a new high school. Well, there's a sort of a shortfall between what we can afford and what we want, so.
Right.
Yeah, the other problem too, is once you spend that 100 million, let's say, on elementaries, now you're 250 million for building a high school.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily want to spend all your bond on one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we gotta be, see, here.
There's a lot of moving parts. Do you know, maybe?
I think it's good to do kind of like we did with the other committee board. You know, we we post it as if, just in case there's a quorum. I don't think we ever had a quorum that showed up, but I like the idea that board members can kind of come and go on the committee. So I don't have an issue with that at all.
How soon do we need to have this, what you were talking about, the meeting?
What I'd like to do is, I'd love to do that within no more than 4 to 6 weeks.
So you'll get dates and figure out like you normally do?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll get dates, and so in the meantime, we've got some other dates we have to do.
Okay. Did you have anything on the board reports, Hollis?
We have 12 parishioners,
Let's call them students.
carryovers from last year in the AP.
Did I ask everybody that would have something on the reports? Anybody have any questions on any of the reports?
Are we going, not on reports, but are we going to have goal setting? Is that been finalized?
That's what I was just about to ask. On the 27th of this month, from 8 to 12, that's 8 o'clock in the morning till noon. If we could all do goal setting on that day, we could knock this thing out.
I got my cards in the truck.
It is. That's the first thing I go to, Jay, is your work schedule.
Okay, yeah,
Yes, sir.
'cause I don't have it.
Card.
You're clear. That's where I start.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. 8 a.m. to noon. Means we'll cut it off at 11:59.
Regardless.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, and what we're gonna do too is we're gonna get together, and I wanna bring some proposed goals, so y'all don't have to sit here and kinda go over all that stuff. And, so anyway, but we'll bring all of that too, so that we may not even make it till noon, who knows? But, anyway.
Do we just need to let you know if that date works for us,
Is
or
there
is that a
anybody-
set date?
I kinda need to
Yeah, he said
I
I'm on.
can,
I would like to set it, but
is there anybody that,
started looking at my schedule.
Okay.
That's not in front of me. It sure does, I'm good with it. I don't have a problem with it, but
gotta check it out.
as soon as I see that there's an appointment or a trip or something that was scheduled on that weekend,
Okay.
then I'm kinda screwed.
How about the rest of you?
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good.
okay. And
Okay.
Chad's good.
Just has something every day, so.
Just gotta
Okay.
work it in.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to item number 23, board requests for additional items. Next scheduled board meeting date is August 30th. Oh, wait, no, hold on. August 30th is our 2022 budgeted tax approval meeting. September 18th is our regular board meeting. Did, anybody have any additional items?
Let me
Anybody else? Anything else? No? Okay, we'll move to item number 24 and we will adjourn at 10:26.